Welcome, everybody, to the Fareway Thanksgiving Day Parade. They said it couldn't be done, folks. They said it was all just pie in the sky. But Frank and his friends have taken Turkey Day to new heights. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Chris Hassel, Andrew Downs. It's time for Instant Iowa. Immediate analysis and reaction presented by Fareway Meat Grocery. From the Channel Seed Studios, this is Iowa Everywhere.
Oh my God! I can't believe that just happened. What? Woo, buddy.
Nebraska always finds a way.
Yes, they do.
Don't they? Oh my God.
I can't believe Iowa just won that game. Oh my God. Drew Stevens.
And how about the full circle moment for Drew Stevens? This is Instant Iowa.
Yes.
Presented by Fareway. We're in the Channel Seed Studios. That is Andrew Downs. I am Chris Hassel.
No.
I'm turning my mic around.
There you go.
I'm all fired up. Just literally seconds ago, we hit live as soon as that field goal went in. Drew Stevens, who was benched a season ago because of how bad he was at Nebraska, didn't get a chance to kick that game-winning field goal, kicks a 53-yard game winner as time expires just inside that right upright.
Just.
And Iowa beats Nebraska again, Andrew Downs. 13-10 Hawkeyes.
And the fourth time in the last 6 Iowa wins in this series, which have all come in the last 7 years, the Hawkeyes win on a walk-off or essentially a walk-off field goal. That's 4 times now in the last 6 games, the last 6 wins.
So I have several family members and friends who are Nebraska fans that I've been in contact with over group message throughout the day and evening. And I just kept saying, just wait. Just wait. Nebraska is going to find a way. And it started with the muffed fake punt.
Yep. Which was funny because
it really wasn't a muff.
He didn't actually muff it.
You're right.
But the guy dove for it as though they muffed it, and that's what gave Iowa the ball.
Then they could not tackle Caleb Johnson, who's just incredible. 72-yard, one of the greatest runs you're ever going to see from a running back, and it was technically a pass.
Yeah, and we'll break that down later. I pulled the pictures that you tweeted, and we can do that a little later because that's crazy.
And then this final sequence where you knew it was going to come down to a kick. And
yeah, you just didn't know which team was going to be doing the kicking.
Right. And I felt pretty good because of what we saw from Nebraska's operation early in the game, a horrible snap. The hold wasn't there. The kick way wide left. The kid is a freshman from Lincoln. He's seen Nebraska win one time in his whole life against Iowa. I felt good about that. I can't believe it, really. I mean, after that first half, which was as bad as it could possibly be, and Iowa just, I mean, this was a game from 2022, 2023. This was one of those games, those Deacon Hill, Spencer Petras games that they just had to eke out. They just had to keep doing their thing, not make a mistake, and let Nebraska make it, and that's exactly what happened.
I mean, the stats of this are going to be hilarious because Iowa was pathetically bad offensively again. I mean, like you said, this was Deacon Hill level football. Didn't convert a third down in the game. Didn't convert a third down. I mean, in the first half, averaged 1 yard per play. Couldn't score with the ball on the 4. Couldn't get a touchdown. Had to settle for a field goal there. You're right. All it took was a huge play by Caleb Johnson, A huge play by Max Llewellyn, Urbandale kid, grew up just down the street from me here. Huge play there, especially after it felt like the turnover you needed on that final drive by Nebraska happened earlier in the drive, but the running back fell on the ball, and so it was like, that was the chance, that was the opportunity. And even then, you were like, can this offense even move the ball a little bit to get? And then you realize, Stevens is in because of the strip sack. Stevens is in field goal range. Just hand it to Caleb Johnson twice.
Yeah, you
Don't
really
lose
didn't
too
need
many
to,
yards
because we knew about Stevens' leg, and we've seen him hit these deep shots. I mean, hell, 𝗀𝗃𝗃 has been banging the drum all year that Iowa should have tried to kick like a 68-yard field goal at the end of the Iowa State game,
and this
instead of
solidifies that even
a
more.
Hail Mary, right? God, this kind of game will go a long way in helping the narrative of this season. What a gut punch a 7-5 season and a loss to Nebraska and a loss to Iowa State would have been to this program. But you find a way to get to 8 wins. You hit the over. So congratulations if you had that Iowa over 7.5 wins in Vegas. You got it.
I had the over 5.5 conference wins, so I just hit that.
There you go.
I was worried
and
about
that's
that.
another thing. Like Iowa, I'm not sure how everything is, can shake out tomorrow, but it seems as though Iowa is going to finish in 5th place in the Big Ten Conference. In fact, they are alone in 5th place right now. Illinois is a half game back. Illinois can reach Iowa. That's it. So at worst, you're going to be in a tie for 5th place with the Illinois Fighting Illini, who are ranked. And, maybe Iowa is ranked going into bowl season. And, look, we know how we feel about bowl games. It's not it's more about who is actually going to play in the game rather than what the game actually is. But
and kind of who the opponent is, I guess, although even that
for me, it's a little bit of everything. Like I would rather have a good opponent and guys that are not opting out than a good destination and a bunch of guys that are going to opt out on both sides. But
it does. Ross Peterson and I were talking about this earlier here on Iowa Everywhere. We did a little pregame show. That was a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah, that looked great. You guys did a great job. Had a lot of
really
great feedback on that. Man, you've been all over the place, AD. You did.
This is my 3rd show of the day.
So you were in Vegas to start the week.
Yeah.
You did Instant Iowa from Vegas on last weekend.
Yeah.
You come back on Monday. Today you do Murph and Andy from your house, right? Mm-hmm. And then you drive to Iowa City, which is a 2-hour drive or so. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours. And you do that before the game. You drive back, and now you're doing Instant Iowa after the game. You might be our Hoodoo doer of the game, AD.
Hey, hell yeah. I'll take it. Absolutely.
Holy shit.
But Ross and I were saying, bowl games now feel like more of an extension of next season than they do of this season. So that'll be interesting.
If you can make them that, I don't know what it's going to look like. It appears as though, listening to legends and listeners and Scott Docterman and 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃, and we'll get into this more, throughout the next couple of weeks, that Iowa might be going to what either the Citrus Bowl or what used to be the Outback Bowl.
The
Outback Bowl is the ReliaQuest now is likely going to be the destination, with the Citrus Bowl more than likely taking Illinois because Iowa's been there and Illinois has a better ranking. But I do want to thank some of our sponsors here before we get too deep into the show, and start with Freedom Tire and Quentin Crowner and all those Freedom Tire employees in Central Iowa, on Fleur Drive in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Hickman and Urbandale, Altoona, and Ames. I know Quentin, big Iowa State fan. He was offering to buy me a 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 jersey from Shields when he thought it was 99 cents. It's not. It's $92. So, Quentin, I do expect that $92 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 jersey from you. Freedom Tire is the place to go right now for all tire needs, major brands, vehicle maintenance and repairs. FreedomTire.com is where you go for that. AD, did you want to sing? I mean, you have to be in the singing mood, right?
Have to be in the singing mood. Yeah.
Freedom Tire?
How do you want it? How do you want it?
The Priest Catholic Church Freedom Tire hymn.
Freedom, freedom, freedom tire.
Amen.
Thank you, God, for that win. Oh,
I got a Manhattan going. What do you have?
I got just Jameson. Usually Andy had an old-fashioned at lunchtime.
Yeah, he was rocking it at lunchtime. I wonder, I bet Andy is feeling as good as we are. Andy's not a Hawkeye fan.
No.
Andy is he wants Iowa and Iowa State to win.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really affect him one way or the other.
He wants the goods. He wants like the best story, right?
Yes. And he hates Nebraska.
He hates Nebraska.
This is like his Super Bowl, is the Iowa-Nebraska game. If Iowa wins this game, he is on cloud 9.
Especially when they win it in a hilarious fashion.
Yes.
The
Oh
only
my
thing
God.
that could make this sweeter is if it kept Nebraska out of a bowl game. Unfortunately, that wasn't on the table. But, I mean, for Iowa to win a game in which they're starting – I mean, I guess, hey, Stratton had 115 yards. That's more than –
he did crank a couple over the middle that were big plays.
I forgot. I realized you're right. The Caleb Johnson
and he got
run
the
was
Caleb
not a
Johnson.
run.
Yes.
I was going to say, because it's 115 and a touchdown. I was like, when did he throw a touchdown? Oh, yeah. He threw a screen pass on the 30 to Caleb Johnson.
And
who
that
somehow
play, AD
broke.
was going nowhere. Nowhere.
No,
there was
absolutely.
nothing there.
Here,
It was thrown behind him. Here are some screenshots of the play. He's got 3, 4, 5 Cornhuskers closing down
And,
against
like,
3 blockers.
One decent block on this screen,
And
right?
yes, two of the Nebraska guys are in front of the Iowa
Yes.
blockers, so that's not going to help much. He gets by the first couple, and there's like a leg tackle that he kind of
breaks
squeezes through, but then he meets his defender at about the 30-yard line with 2 to 3 other Cornhuskers right there ready to bring him down. I shit you not, at the start of this play, I'm like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah, what are they doing?
This is going to be 3rd and 12.
Yes.
And then he starts moving forward. He starts pushing this defender backward at the 32, 33, 34. And then I'm thinking, okay, great. This is going to be 3rd and 3. We're going to have an opportunity to keep the ball on the ground. And then he just pushes through all of those guys, gets down the sideline, cuts it back. AD, that's one of the greatest runs that I've ever seen from an Iowa running back.
Yeah, right up there with like that Akram Wadley touchdown.
I thought of the
against Iowa
Akram
State.
Wadley, what is it, the L1 button on the PlayStation.
Exactly.
Boom.
And honestly, like
Some of the Sean Green runs back
Yeah.
in 2008, but this one.
I was saying to my wife, there was that one point where it was like one-on-one, a Nebraska guy kind of had Caleb Johnson. And it was like, man, if the other guys just leave him be, he probably ends up getting him to the ground. He may give up 5 more yards, but he probably gets him to the ground. But then 3 other Nebraska defenders come in and kind of crash the whole party. It knocks them all loose like bowling pins, and Caleb Johnson's off to the races. Got a nice block from Jacob Gill there down the stretch, but probably didn't even need it. It was absolutely incredible. And somehow this Iowa team, with a completely inept offense all day, a quarterback who can't do anything, didn't convert a 3rd down, just does what it does, right? It plays hardcore defense and keeps the game close, and then Caleb Johnson makes one play. That's been the script the whole season. Somehow this is an 8-win football team. I don't know how. I had this whole, I was thinking all of the doom and gloom that would come with a loss there.
Oh, and it would have been. This makes a big difference.
And it really does because it's not even that there's like all these tangible things that Iowa accomplished by winning this game. It's hilarious. It's funny at this point.
It is.
That this team can find ways to win like this with this level of play. Because Jackson Stratton is essentially 7 of 14. I mean, you take that screen away.
Yeah, 7 of 14 for 50 yards.
For 50
basically.
yards.
Yeah.
And
he had the
Caleb
throw
Johnson
to
only had
Gill for 17.
45. Yeah, and Gill got hurt like that same play. Luckily,
Yes.
came back in. 45 yards only for Caleb Johnson on the ground on 17 carries. He could get nothing going. This offensive line couldn't open any holes. And Iowa's passing offense couldn't back them off. You had a tweet, I think, at one point showing 10 guys in the box
Oh my God!
And Iowa just runs right into the line of scrimmage.
On a 2nd and 8, yeah.
And so like it was as bad as it seemed. It's just wild that the game played out the way it did. And as you said, over the last 7 years, 8 years, whatever it's been, I think Iowa's now won 8 of the last 9 in this series. Is that right? Because they had 7 in a row. Yeah, I think that's right. Over that time period, the biggest difference has been Iowa's able to wait out Nebraska, keep the game close enough, and Nebraska will make a mistake.
It's 9 of 10, AD. Starting in that 2015, they won 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Had the loss the last time it was at Kinnick, 24-17. And then the last 2 years, 13-10 Iowa victories on last-second field goals, won by the guy who replaced Drew Stevens, Marshall Mathers. And then today, Drew Stevens, who has been one of the best kickers in the country this season for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And do you remember how weird that got last year for Drew Stevens? He had 2 field goals blocked in the Nebraska game and kicked 2 kickoffs out of bounds. He completely had the yips.
He was so bad.
It was like he couldn't kick the ball straight. And so when it came down to it and they needed a 37-yard field goal to win the game, they didn't trot him out there. They brought out this Marshall Meter who nobody had heard of before.
And nobody's heard of
since. Yeah. and he kicked a 39-yard field goal from 38 yards and won the game. And yeah, what a cool redemption arc then for Drew Stevens to come back, have the season he's had the game he had last week against Maryland, and then get the game-winning field goal here. Fantastic, man.
I'm looking forward to
I'm looking forward to going and watching
now,
Nebraska instant reaction shows.
A year from now, on Murph and Andy, AD, you're going to join the show. It's going to be Black Friday leading into the Iowa-Nebraska game. And Andy's going to say, we need to carve out 15 minutes to look back at how Nebraska blew that game last season. He does it every year, and it's always comical, all the things that Nebraska does to lose this game, and they did it again today. You are not too late to check out some of the great full-court press restaurants and bars in the Des Moines area tonight.
Yeah, the night is young,
late.
Baby.
Very young in Des Moines. As it stands right now, it's just after 10 Central Time. Of course, Fong's is open till 2 a.m., but all kinds of great places to go. Hessen House with a great German beer. The Iowa Tap Room with 120-plus Iowa beers on tap. And one of my favorite places, the High Life Lounge with the best bar food in the state of Iowa. Full Court Press family of restaurants and bars is your go-to on the weekend in Des Moines. Let's talk quarterback position, AD. Sullivan must not have been at all healthy and ready to go.
Because even at halftime, when the NBC broadcast kind of brought it up, they had talked to Kirk Ferentz.
Well, Burmeister, right before that interview with the sideline reporter, Burmeister was like, I think we'll see Sullivan in the second half. Kirk Ferentz said that it's likely that we're going to see both quarterbacks.
And then they went down to the sideline, and she said, he said probably not. I asked
and even in the goal to go,
they
had first and goal at the 4 after that, the turnover on the punt return, the muff thing. Sullivan doesn't come in. So I don't know. I don't think he was ready. If he was ready to go, I would have put him in the second half.
And I think Kirk probably would have too. I think Kirk has enough trust in Sullivan that he would have. Clearly, I think it was like an emergency situation because Cade McNamara was in street clothes, right? I mean, he wasn't.
What'd you make of that? We had kind of talked on Two Guys this week. Like, what is the reaction going to be if Cade walks? And Cade, even though he didn't dress, he still could have walked.
Absolutely. I thought it was weird he didn't.
He did not walk for senior day.
It's too bad that this is the way the relationship seems like it's going to end.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been good, and to have it, and I mean, the only thing that you could have done is kind of at least put a stoic face on the ending of it, and that just doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. It'll be interesting to see if we ever get like a candid Kirk Ferentz conversation about the Cade McNamara era.
And Cade seems like a guy that might do a candid interview after the fact, after he's,
and he'll do it, and it'll just piss off Iowa fans.
Oh, yeah.
They'll all just hate it.
Because I think right now he's making sure to, like, he wants all of his checks from the Swarm because he made a lot of money, and that's going to be money that's going to set him up great in the future as he goes into the professional world. Yeah, whatever he does. I would do the same thing. I mean,
of course,
you have to get all that.
Yeah.
And so you have to be part of the team, to get probably your last paycheck there. But to not walk, is that him? Like, geez, I don't want to get booed walking out there because there would have been some boos. I don't know if it would have been overpowering, but there would have been some boos.
There would have been some, yeah, especially without being in uniform. So, yeah, obviously Brendan Sullivan wasn't ready to go. Marco Lainez clearly not ready to go, has a cast on his arm. And it was basically they were in uniform in case Jackson Stratton got injured to the point he couldn't play. There was no level of bad play, I don't think, that was going to pull Jackson Stratton out of this game today. And I think Kirk and Tim Lester probably realized pretty quickly this is going to be one where we got to kind of grind our teeth.
Yeah.
Play field position ball, hope that the defense comes up with something because the quarterback doesn't have it, because he didn't have it today. And honestly, we've had about a game and a half of good quarterback play this season, which is wild in an 8-win season.
I think we won. Iowa won 10 games last year with even worse quarterback
with
play.
0 games of good quarterback play.
I think that what we've seen
the second half of that Northwestern game and the Wisconsin game. Again, Iowa has had good games outside of that. The game against Washington was a good game. I mean, Iowa has played well outside of that. But I would say the only time they've had good quarterback play was when Brendan Sullivan was healthy and had control of the offense.
I think that it's pretty clear from getting a longer look at Stratton and Sullivan that they have to go into the portal in the offseason to bring someone in that they think could be the starter.
Yeah.
I think you give Sullivan and Stratton a chance to win the job, but I think you have to go and try your best to land somebody that you think is going to be the starting quarterback, whether it's just for next season or for next season and the years beyond. I won't feel great about going into next year if it's just Sullivan and Stratton. And who knows with Lainez, I'm guessing he enters the transfer portal, having never really gotten a chance. I thought that this was a bad omen earlier today.
Yeah.
I was putting up my tree here. You see my Hawkeye
I like it.
tree with all my Hawkeye ornaments. I had so I only put on, so I have the trophy ornaments, like the
you have all of them?
The Florida Rosedale. I don't have them all. I don't have the bull. But I've got the Florida Rosedale here that's up on the tree. I will only put that up if Iowa beats Minnesota. So the Heroes Trophy.
That's cool.
I wasn't going to put that up. I was going to put it up live on the show. But I dropped this sumbitch, and the football on top broke off. And I thought that was
like a bad omen.
A bad omen, but maybe it's like you tell an actor to break a leg before they go out on set, and I kind of broke a leg.
I got my Christmas decorations up.
What is that? Shitter's full. Nice. All right, let's get into our Hoodoo doer of the game. If you have a job that needs done, as long as it's legal, 𝗙ecie 𝗰𝗃 and the folks over there at Hoodoo will get it done. Download the Hoodoo app. Go to heyhoodoo.com.
The all new Hoodoo app. They got like a whole. They had their biggest
overhauled.
Yeah, they've had their biggest overhaul in company history. It's quicker.
Okay.
It's easier to use.
God, I wish I could use it.
Yeah, check it out.
I heard they went over 10,000 doers.
Yeah.
And also, it is not too late if you look. This is the weekend. If you're doing like Christmas lights and stuff, this is the weekend. Really, that you start seeing all those Christmas light displays going up.
You start to feel bad that you're the guy who doesn't have it up yet.
Yeah. Hoodoo's the place to go. Like if you've got your own lights or if you don't, they can do either way. They can provide them for you and put them up, or if you have some that you want put up, go to Hoodoo, the Odd Job Marketplace, and you sign up for that, and somebody will come over and do a great job putting those lights up. And you know what? If they don't, they get bad reviews, and they are quickly phased out. That's
you would think
this.
that Hoodoo, in a situation like that, kind of steps back and says, "Hey, this is a transaction between you and them," and they don't do that at all. Like they make it a point to make sure, like, follow up and follow through.
Yes.
And if there is an issue, they're not going to say, well, sorry. I mean, you booked the job. They make it right, which is
there was
really,
somebody
really
that we
cool
knew
thing.
that had a bad, not a bad experience, but an experience where the person, the doer, the who doer, was supposed to come back and finish a little something on the job, and they didn't do it. Got back to the owner, and the owner was like, "Shit, I'm coming out. I'll do it myself."
Did it himself.
Like that's all you want from a locally owned company. They're gonna make it right. AD, who is your Hoodoo doer of the game?
This is so tough, right? I mean, I've seen people in our comments already being like, well, it's obviously Drew Stevens. I had John Nestor down because he made a couple of big special teams plays. He downed that punt at the goal line. I think it ended up being at like the 5-yard line, downed a punt, and that was a great play by him. And then he was the one who recovered the fumble on the muffed punt return.
And if not for him going after that,
right,
the Nebraska player doesn't go after it himself and touch it.
Because that was very, very close. I mean, if you have a different angle of that, I will probably touch that first. Now, I also, like, the heart of me, Max Llewellyn grew up 3 blocks from where I'm sitting right now. Wow, that's an Urbandale Jayhawk, and that was as big of a defensive play as you're ever going to see. I mean, in a situation where you absolutely had to have something, and Nebraska gave you nothing, he didn't wait for somebody to drop the ball. He didn't wait for somebody to throw the ball. He went there, and he got the damn ball, and he took it away, and he showed the refs, look, I got the fucking ball. Go look at your replay. It's an Iowa ball. Because it didn't feel like that at all. It was like, it was kind of wild that he came up with the ball, and it was like, wait a minute, what just happened?
I saw the way he reacted, and I was like, oh my God. Because the way he came in for that sack, like, there's no way that Raiola could hold on to that ball. The way he attacked him, he had to have fumbled that ball. And the fact that he came out of there with it.
Yes.
And he was so demonstrative.
Yes, exactly.
And instantly you see that replay, and that ball's out right away.
He's like, I had that. And he took it. I mean, he had the ball in his hands before they hit the ground. And that was such an incredible play. So, yeah, I guess I'll go Max Llewellyn because I'm an Urbandale guy. He's an Urbandale guy. That's the
play of the game.
Play of the game.
I mean, we've seen some comments for Ethan Hurkett, who he had a couple of sacks
in the first quarter,
3 TFLs. He had a forced fumble himself. Obviously, you could go with Caleb Johnson for that run after the catch that really turned the game around. That was like the spark that Iowa needed in this. They needed to manufacture a huge play, and Caleb did that for that 72-yard pass play. But I saw something on social media that was so cool. It was Nebraska player Dylan Parrott waving to the kids at the Iowa Children's Hospital. And Nebraska football tweeted, 11 years ago, Parrott himself was treated for cancer at the Iowa Children's Hospital. Today, he gets to be a beacon of hope for other kids in his same shoes. So I'm going to give it to Nebraska's number 99, Dylan Parrott, for surviving.
That's incredibly cool.
Thriving, getting a big-time scholarship to Nebraska, and then getting to stand on that field and wave at the kids that were in his exact position 11 years ago.
Yeah, I pulled that tweet up here. That's
and
really,
there
really
he
cool.
is. That was great from the Nebraska social team, too, to get that up right away. And you see, I mean, just look at his eyes. I mean, God, you could tell how much that means to him to be able to look up there.
And 11 years ago was, it was pre-wave. It was so like.
Yeah. And that was right when.
That's really cool.
Boy, that was right when Iowa and Nebraska started playing this game. It was 2013.
That's right.
What did they start playing? 2010, something like that. 2011.
Well, we've kicked their ass 9 of the last 10 years? Holy cow.
9 of 10, AD.
Yeah,
9
man.
of 10. Who could have possibly thought that when this series started?
God.
I've got the thing pulled up. It was in 2011 this thing started. And the first 2 years that these two teams played, Nebraska was a ranked team and won this game. 2011 in Lincoln, Nebraska won 20-7. 2012 in Iowa City, Nebraska wins 13-7. But then things started to turn. 2013, Iowa notches a win. 2014, it was an overtime game in Iowa City that Nebraska ended up winning 37-34. And then 2015, Iowa wins, and then it was on because then it was 40-10 in 2016, 56-14 in 2017, and ever since then, it's been tight every game.
A one-possession game, 7 years
every
in a row
time.
now.
And look,
And
I'd like
Iowa
to say
has
Iowa
kicked
finds a way, but it's Nebraska finding a way to lose games.
Especially in games like that. Ross and I kind of went through this in the pregame, and Andy did a whole thing on last year's game on Murph and Andy. If you haven't checked that out, certainly do. It's like a 7-minute breakdown.
So good.
Oh, it was awesome.
That's what I'm saying. I can't wait till a year from now when he's doing that on this game.
Exactly. But they've all just been so close. And in games like in 2021, that was where Nebraska had a big lead on Iowa. And then Iowa had that blocked punt for a touchdown. They were still down by 5. And after the game, Scott Frost said, as soon as they blocked that punt, we knew we were going to lose. Iowa got a safety, got a field goal to tie the game, and then scored a touchdown to win by 7. Nebraska just has had this mindset in this game that something's going to go wrong. And more often than not, that's been the case. And it seems like Iowa's mindset is, hey, something will happen. Something will go right here.
And that's kind of how Kirk Ferentz, it plays right into him because that's how he plays every game. Like, we are going to play mistake-free football. We're going to punt it on 4th and 1. And I was so pissed off numerous times. I mean, you're giving the ball to Moulton. You're giving the ball to Patterson on 3rd and 1s, and then you're punting in Nebraska territory.
Yeah, on like the 42-yard line. And then you're punting into a wind that Reese Dakin couldn't punt into. You net like 30 yards on the punt. And
yet it ends up working out because, again, Nebraska finds a way.
I cannot believe we're sitting here 35 minutes after it happened. I cannot believe Iowa won that game. At no point in that game, literally until Max Luella came out with the ball. At no point in that game did I think Iowa was going to win. From the first drive on. I mean, Iowa goes 3 and out, and Nebraska marches all the way down the field and only gets a field goal. But it was like, it's going to be a long night, man. Because Raiola didn't do the things I thought he would have to do to lose this game, right? He played well.
22 for 32,
190 yards. Didn't have the mistake, right? I mean, other than, I guess,
interceptions, but he was a little loose with the football in the pocket at times.
Well, and especially that last fumble was big.
Shit, they outgained Iowa 334 to 164.
Yeah, these game stats have to be nuts.
I mean, think of this. Going into the game, AD, I tell you, Nebraska is going to outrush Iowa 144 to 49. You think Iowa wins that game?
No.
Hell no. No chance. You're thinking Nebraska wins by double digits.
Yeah, absolutely.
0 of 10 on 3rd down.
0 of 10.
Nebraska
did not convert a 3rd down.
Nebraska had 4 times as many first downs as Iowa. 20 first downs to Iowa's 5.
Iowa literally averaged 1 yard a play in the first half.
Yeah, 20 plays, 20 yards in the first half.
And yet, look, I mean, it's hilarious. Like, average yards per completion for Iowa is almost 15. And it's because Caleb Johnson went 72 yards. Like, some of those are just so out of whack.
But
this
is the difference in the programs.
Got doubled up in time of possession. Iowa had 20 minutes.
Wow.
Nebraska almost had 40.
But look at the key stat. Nebraska 2 turnovers, Iowa 0. Nebraska
twice as many yards, 4 times as many first downs,
Iowa
twice
had
as much time of
one
possession.
penalty. That's it. 1 penalty.
Yep, that was big.
They don't hurt themselves. They just hang around, and a team like Nebraska will always give you a chance.
Even
always.
A Matt Rule-led team, even a Dana.
I bet those fans, AD, after they clinched that bowl game, they stormed the field. They're thinking, this is a new leaf.
Yeah, right.
This is a new era.
And the Dana Holgorsen era, maybe more than ever, because
right.
I mean, Iowa fans would have felt that if you bring in a new offensive coordinator and 2 games later you're putting up 40-some points on Wisconsin, you're like, hell yeah, this is what we needed. Here we go. Let's go. And then you have the most. I mean, I would like. We should pull up last year's Iowa. I mean, how bad was this compared to what Iowa offense looked like last year? It can't be much worse.
Yeah, pull that up
Or
because
much better,
it was the same. It was the same final score, 13-10. It ended the same way. Nebraska turns the ball over. Last year, it was like just a ridiculous interception where Iowa runs it Iowa gets it in Nebraska territory around the 35-yard line and kicks a field goal to win the game. I'm pulling up the stats right now. Surprisingly, Nebraska dominated more today than they did last year. Iowa had 257 total yards in that game. Nebraska 264. Iowa got some third down conversions. They were 6 of 18. They could rush the ball, 163 on the ground. Iowa won the time of possession. Nebraska dominated this game even more.
Like way more.
Than the Deacon Hill game. Way more. Yeah, you're right. Way more. Way more. And you know what? I was so impressed, and I always am. I should never doubt these bastards over there in Iowa City and all you guys traveling all over the state.
Yeah.
That crowd was awesome.
Absolutely.
For a game between a 6-5 team and a 7-4 team that really had no significance.
On the coldest game in Kinnick Stadium history. I mean, it was brutal. I was just in Iowa City. Ross and I did the show, and then I took him over to Kinnick because he and his buddy were going to the game. It was brutal. Like, even if I had tickets and planned to go.
Windy. Yeah, the thing
nope.
that even more, like Rule said right before the game, before kickoff, the sideline reporter was interviewed. Like, I didn't think it was going to be this windy. And you see in the breath and like.
And there will be far more people in Iowa City tonight than there will be in Ames tomorrow night, where the Cyclones have a chance to go to a playoff.
I was having some fun.
I saw that. That was
trolling
great.
Of Iowa State fans tonight. But it's true. Like I don't expect Jack Trice Stadium to be that on fire, that full as Kinnick was tonight. And Iowa State fans are going to say, well, there's 30,000 Nebraska. There weren't. The Nebraska fans might have been 5 to 10% of the crowd. And because you could see them. They stood out. It was a blackout, and they were in red. Like, it wasn't that much, okay? It was like, at the most, 10% maybe. Maybe 7,000. All right? It wasn't huge quantities of Nebraska fans. And you know what? I saw some screen grabs from early in the second half. There were students that didn't come back.
Yeah.
And that's fine because that first half was terrible. I didn't blame them. It was cold. First half was awful. We know how students are. You were a student there back in the day.
Yeah, brutal.
Probably 3,000 of them didn't come back. They went out drinking. But that stadium was full in the first half and pretty full at the end of that game for a quote-unquote meaningless football game. And Iowa, again, comes out on top of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I don't know about you, AD, but there's no team as an Iowa fan that I enjoy beating more than Nebraska. I think the Wisconsin game is a bigger rivalry in the Big Ten.
Yes.
More important game.
I hate Wisconsin more than I hate Nebraska. It is more fun to beat Nebraska.
Because you know how
they hate it.
Dejected.
Oh my God. Because they still don't consider Iowa on their level.
Yet Iowa's won 9 of 10.
The fact that it keeps happening. Like, at least Wisconsin respects Iowa.
Right.
And at this point, probably envies Iowa a little bit for not, because their massive
hey, I'll
change
eat some
is
crow
not
on
working.
that too, on both of these fronts, AD. Because I remember, 2 years ago, right now probably.
Yeah.
Nebraska and Wisconsin go out, fire their head coaches, get new guy, big splash hires in. Like, see, this is like they're gonna pass Iowa. They have not. They have not passed Kirk Ferentz. Nope. Say what you want about Kirk. I mean, and we could say plenty of things.
That's the thing. But these new coaches come in. PJ Fleck is the same way. Matt Campbell, for the most part, has been the same way. These young new coaches, newfangled ideas, new schemes. Iowa's boring. You know what they're gonna do, right? And Iowa just keeps beating these teams. Yeah, they're getting their asses kicked by the elite teams, and that's an issue. And this offense isn't good, and there are problems. There are major problems that need to be addressed, and hopefully are being addressed to some degree with Tim Lester, who I think has had a great first regular season as Iowa's offensive coordinator.
There's no doubt about that.
And Iowa just finds ways to beat these teams year in and year out. I mean, even when Iowa was great 20 years ago, right, in that first kind of surge of the Ferentz era, they weren't beating their rivals at this clip. I mean,
I still want to see Brad Banks,
Brad
Banks reincarnated, come back to be the quarterback.
Hey, healthy Brendan Sullivan next season, baby.
Yeah, right.
Do you think Brendan Sullivan starts the bowl game? I assume he'll be healthy by then. We're talking a month from now.
Yes,
if he's healthy, he's the starter.
Yeah, I do.
And I think it's one of those where it's like, hey, we're going to go out in the transfer portal. We're going to find somebody to compete. They'll talk a lot about competition and open job or whatever. But I think it'll be very clear through the way Kirk Ferentz talks about Brendan Sullivan that he's the guy, the head guy. He's got a head start on that job moving into next season. And I think that's the right call. Again, like I said,
do too.
He's the only.
I want to see more
quarterback.
Of him.
I do too, and it's too bad we didn't get to see him in these last couple of games. I'd like to see him in a bowl game to see what he has. It's too bad we didn't get to see more of him this season, so we could feel a little more confident. But he's the only quarterback that had any, flash in him, that had any spark of something truly special. Now, again, he's not perfect, and it's not. I'm not saying he's the savior. He's not Brad Banks. But he is the only one of the three who had that swagger both off and on the field, because Cade McNamara has swagger off the field in droves. I mean, that guy drips swagger.
Yeah, it didn't translate.
And it didn't translate at all. Jackson Stratton has been a very confident person these last couple of games, and he played well last week against Maryland, but he didn't have the spark that we saw. The offense didn't have the spark that we saw. Really, the entire team, you could tell, really rallied around Brendan Sullivan in a way that they didn't anybody else this season. And so, that's enough for me to say I want him to start the bowl game. And yeah, like Lucas saying in the comments, his arm is just okay. You're right. He's not a great quarterback. He's a failed Northwestern quarterback. I mean, he's not Dylan Raiola, right? A 5-star guy who could have gone anywhere.
I thought Raiola could have carved Iowa up more than he did. Like,
as
much
too.
time as he had back there at certain spots in this game.
He's a freshman, man, and he played like it at times.
I will say there was one play that Nebraska's going to look back on. It was a throw. They were around midfield, and he threw it to Nayor, and I think it would have been a touchdown. He was at about the 30, 35-yard line. He had a blocker out front, and it went right through his hands. And it's just so typical of Nebraska in these close games, especially close games against Iowa. AD, any last words?
Hey, a quick shout out to both Ross Peterson, who's joined me after the game on last Saturday, the Maryland game, as you were in the Bahamas,
Yes.
some basketball.
Yeah, you guys did a great job.
That was fun.
That was perfect. And
And
Ross,
then-
like Ross, he knows how to do an Iowa post-game show. He's doing
it was
sound
like
off
so,
for all these
you
years.
you texted me Wednesday. You're like, hey, I just got a call. CBS wants me in the Bahamas, and it was like, hey, Ross is gonna be in Vegas with me. I'll just bring my stuff and we'll do the show from there. So yeah, that was perfect. And then he was able to come over to Iowa City with me today. And shout out to Buffalo Wild Wings in Iowa City for putting us up. Anheuser-Busch for having us do that. We're hoping this is like the start. We really wanted to see if this would work. We haven't done many shows like that before. Certainly not in places like that where it was jam packed at a bar, like on campus right before a big game. But we haven't done that many remote shows as Iowa Everywhere. They've done it in Vegas a couple of times, and we did the first Murph and Andy on RVTV. But we wanted to kind of see how that would work. And so we're hoping to do more things like that. As the guys said on the show today, it's really Iowa Everywhere with, us being out and about, and we can kind of do these things. And so shout out to everybody. And then a handful of people came up to me before, during, and after our pregame show today and, thanked us for what we do. They love this show. That was really, really cool. And so, yeah, shout out to all those people and everybody who put that together. That was a lot of fun.
And we've come a long way because I remember some of our first remote shows in Vegas at 𝗀cie that we were trying to do with, it was me and Williams and God, I can't remember who else was out there, but it was like, we're putting things together with duct tape and everything. It was the first few months of Iowa Everywhere, and what you guys did today was so good. It looked great, sounded great, professional, great preview to the games, and
hey, first it was cool because we were playing in the bar we were at. There was a rough part of it though. Ross and I sat down. We're all set up. We're like, okay, it's counting down to 4:30, and we realize the Chiefs game is on at this bar, and the sound is on at Buffalo Wild Wings, and like a good portion of the Nebraska fans that were there, because most Hawkeye fans are out tailgating or doing what they normally do, right? So that inside a restaurant like that, a couple of miles from the stadium, you're going to find a lot of Nebraska fans, and there were, and they're all Chiefs fans also, and the game is like getting closer and closer, and all of a sudden the Raiders score, and we're getting closer to 4:30, and we know they're gonna take the game off the speakers and off the main TVs to put us on. And so thankfully, right before 4:30, it goes to commercial, and it was going into the fourth quarter of the NFL game, and that's when we went live. So it didn't like cut. We did that purposefully because we were like, if we go now, it's not gonna cut mid play. So shout out to all the people who were there watching the Chiefs. And then had to hear Ross and I wax poetic about Iowa football for an hour.
We went out to dinner tonight before the game, and I shit you not. I mean, I'm in Delray Beach, Florida. I'm South Florida. You don't see many Midwesterners here. There was a woman that came in with a Nebraska football jersey on. She had a Johnny Rodgers jersey. Johnny Rodgers, former Heisman winner from God knows when, the 70s. Yeah. And she was there, and I was gonna get a picture taken with her. I was like, I don't want to bother her. She doesn't know who the hell I am. I'm not gonna do that. So we just we let her be. But I bet she's very disappointed tonight. She was extremely excited about watching the game. She called Iowa her biggest rival. She also ordered a Manhattan with a big ice cube, which that's not a Manhattan. A Manhattan is supposed to be like this in a coupe. She doesn't like that. Typical Nebraska fan. That's how we close the show. AD.
I will say, I just got the stat from Matt Benson.
Yes.
FBS teams with 5 or fewer first downs had lost 90 straight games. The last win was Arkansas over UNLV in August of 2001. Iowa ended that 90-game streak. Also, hey, shout out to you and Instant Iowa and our sponsors and our great viewers and listeners. We'll have a bowl show. We're going to do something else here in the postseason. But, hey, we just completed our first regular season, man. This was your idea. Fun, it came about 8 days before kickoff.
Yeah, I just jumped on a group chat with you. I was like, hey, you want to do a post-game show with me on the...
Honestly, I got told I couldn't do sound. I was supposed to fill in for Ross on Sound Off, and I got told I couldn't do it. Not by us, I'll just say that. And I texted you guys. I was like, "Oh, that's kind of a bummer." And you were like, "Well, why don't we? I'm not doing games this year. Why don't we we can do it right as soon as the game ends?" And man, it's been so successful. It's been so much fun. I've enjoyed doing this with you.
So many
much.
ups and downs this season, man.
Yeah.
It's like, God, every week, crazy.
And
like you winning games 42-10 against Wisconsin and Washington. You're losing to Michigan State and UCLA. But thank God for the one constant, Nebraska just shitting the bed.
I can't believe we won that fucking game, Chris. I cannot believe we won that game.
Amazing.
I'm going to have to go back and watch it again just to make sure that actually happened.
I know. All right. 13-10, Iowa beats Nebraska. After trailing 10-0 at halftime and really having no hope, it seemed like, to win this game. Instant Iowa, presented by Fareway. We are in the Channel Seed Studios. Chris Hassel, Andrew Downs. Thank you to everybody that watched, that listened. I know there were a lot of Iowa State fans that were listening because they thought we were going to talk about the crowd tomorrow night. But in all honesty, go Cyclones. I really hope
for sure.
Iowa State wins tomorrow night, goes to the Big 12 championship game, because I think the better Iowa State is, the better football in Iowa is. And I think I'm one of the few people that thinks that. I know you're the same way, AD. Our lives are better with our jobs when both teams are winning. Thank you, everybody. The Hawkeyes finished the regular season 8-4 overall, 6-3 in the Big Ten. They only finished behind 4 teams, and all of them are likely going to make the college football playoff. So that close, I guess. Thanks, everybody.